Hello and welcome back to Bookish. I have for some time now been talking about or thinking about, because of BookTube, the type of reader I am. What do I read for? What do I value most in a book? And I've been putting out there the idea that what matters to me most in a book are the characters and how well drawn the characters are and how much of a feeling I have for the characters or how interesting I think the characters are. So I decided to go back and look at the novels that I've read so far this year and to rank them from my favorite to my least favorite, and then to see if the novels that I ranked as my favorite novels kind of corresponded to this idea that I read for character, that character is what I'm most interested in the hopes that this would either confirm or, force me to reevaluate what kind of a reader I am. So here is a list of the top 11 books, novels that I read this year. I've read 19 novels so far this year. Remind you that I'm a slow reader. I've read 19 novels so far this year, and I've read 18 works of nonfiction so far. So I've read way more nonfiction this year than I think is normal, even though I don't really keep track of what I read. I don't keep a reading diary or anything. I had to actually go back and look through my monthly wrap-ups just to make this list. I might have forgotten, but here are the top 11 books. I went with 11 because there were some really close calls between some of these books, so I went with 11. So my number one was Nupamine by Leanne, Betasamosake, Simpson. My number two was Eyes Another by Jon Fosse. My number three is This Is Not a Novel by David Markson. My number four was The Yield by Carey Winch. My number five, Mercy by Toni Morrison. Number six, Angle of Repose by Wallace Stegner. Seven, Maurice by Forster. 8, Despised and Rejected by Rose Allatini. 9, The Hangman of St. Philemon by George Simenon. 10, Detransition Baby by Torrey Peters. And 11, Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey. So there were then 8 other novels which I also ranked, but those novels I'll talk about here in just a minute. Those are novels which I decided not to put on the slide, and just to talk about the top 11. So then in looking at the novels that I thought were the best, I assigned each to a category. Is this book primarily a book about characters? Is this book a book about centered around an idea or a theme? Is this book plot driven? Is this book just different? I went with the word different because experimental seemed too specific. So now here's the same list of books with the characteristics of each one of those books listed. So you see that number one, Nupamine, I listed as different. Thank you, Mark Nash, for helping me come up with this category. I listed Nupamine as different because it is a very different book. Beautiful, different, and you may know that I reread it immediately after finishing it the first time. The second book I went with is Eyes Another by Jon Fosse, was number 2 on my list, and I called that a book primarily focused on a character because you spend the entire novel really inside the head, looking at the world through one character, and you get a great idea about that character and what they're like and their ideas, and so the book focused on that. But having said that, it is also different in the way that it's structured, in that it's repetitive, and there's no real distinction between present and past and things like that. But I thought character was the main part of that. Number 3 was This Is Not a Novel by David Markson, which I'm going to classify as different. It may technically be experimental, or I don't know what you call them, but I just classified it as different because that's my classification. And Markson's novel is really a collection of almost factoids, and I think Mark Nash has suggested that almost like note card piece of information that Markson has arranged, and from which you kind of can draw meaning or not meaning, and I really thought it was great. The Yield by Carey Winch I thought was centered around an idea of what was lost when indigenous people in Australia were killed, had their culture destroyed, and the grandfather character in The Yield attempting to preserve as that much as they can by creating a dictionary of indigenous words to leave behind. and in the process revealing some things about family history. And anyway, it's just a really powerful book, and I decided it was organized around an idea, so I called that one Idea. A Mercy by Toni Morrison. There is definitely a theme there in the book that underlines like the undercurrent of the book, but I decided that book was really about characters, because really the focus is how those different characters kind of are affected by that theme, or affected by this kind of overarching thing. Angle of Repose by Wallace Stegner. Character, really great characters, husband-wife character in there who definitely love each other but don't really fit with one another. Maurice by Ian Forster, which I read last month for Pride Month, almost completely focused on the title character, Maurice, and his experiences and his coming to grips with the fact that he is a gay man living in early 20th century England. Number 8 is Despised and Rejected by Rose Allatini, which, even though it has themes of, gay characters coming to grips with the fact that they're gay and how they're going to live in the same world essentially which Maurice is set, along with the pacifism in the World War I really thought it was a character study about very specific characters and how they work out to live their lives and the tragedies of their lives. So I went with the character on that one. Then number 9, The Hangman of St. Philemon. This is a mystery novel. It's one of the Maigret mysteries. It's third in the series. It's the one I've enjoyed the most, and it is definitely plot driven, as almost all, I think, detective novels are. Having said that, Maigret is a character in and of himself, and a really great character in detective fiction. Then 10 and 11, I really couldn't choose much between which of these two are my favorite, but both are really character-driven books. To me, Detransition Baby is all about the characters, the 3 main characters, their thoughts, how they try to work through their past and how they're going to live with one another. And then Oscar and Lucinda, again, the 2 main title characters here are really, to me, what the book's about, even though there is a strong plot element there too. So you might disagree with my categorization, but looking at that categorization, 2 things strike me about it. I claim to be a character reader, and yes, most of the titles on my list are character-driven books. I think 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11. So 7 of the 11, I guess. Is that right? Yes, 7 of the 11 books are character books, so I feel pretty good that I'm right about evaluating myself there. But I notice also then that of the top 4 books, or top 5 books maybe I should say, 3 of those top 5 books are either different or they're built around a theme or an idea or some central kind of unifying thing. So perhaps generally speaking, I'm a character, but maybe what I appreciate most is something new, something different, some kind of thematic correlation. But what I really notice most about this, and this is why I'll put the third list up here, is that in looking at my top 11 books, most of my top 11 books were actually recommended to me in one way or another by booktubers. I believe I first saw Newpin being discussed on the Poptimus channel. I know I Is Another Name by Jon Fosse was discussed by Celia at her channel. I know that this came from Mark Nash. The Yield, I'm a little bit confused about on my list. I put Sean. I'm not sure if he's the first person. I buddy read this with Britta Bowler. Maybe I got the idea from her. Maybe it was from 6 Minutes for Me. Possibly Greg over at Supposedly Fun maybe is where I got the idea. I'm not sure, but that definitely was a book title I saw recommended by somebody. Mercy is a book that I wanted to read. It's a Toni Morrison novel. Angle of Repose, a book recommended by Kelly, one of her favorite books. Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. Maurice was me, a Pride Month choice. Despised and Rejected, Katie at Books and Things. I saw this book on her channel in one of her discussions. The Hangman of St. Philemon, that was me, even though the idea of reading these Maigret novels was suggested, or I saw the Maigret novels in their new edition on Steve Donahue's channel. Detransition Baby, that was me. And then Oscar and Lucinda, Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse. So I don't have the list of the rest of the novels up there, but novels on my list 12 through 19 were all me. Every one of the novels that I listed 12 through 19, keeping in mind I've only read 19 novels this month, or so far at this point in the year, were all recommended by me. So this actually to me ended up being the more interesting thing that I discovered by making this list. why are so many of the books in my top 11 books recommended to me by other booktubers? This is some kind of, I don't know, sycophantic need to please? Is this some kind of, well, somebody I really likes this book, so I'm going to give it, start it off on a higher level? I'm not exactly sure what that says about me, but I did think that was interesting. Maybe it's just that my friends here on BookTube are excellent recommenders of books, and therefore, I have a great taste in BookTube friends. Anyway, I don't know what all that means, but I thought that would be kind of an interesting thing to make a video about, so I did, because hey, this is my channel. I do what I want to do. Let me know what you think about this and what kind of reader you think you are in the comments section down below. And as always, thank you for watching.